tool to communicate the gospel. I love writing stories, getting in my office, and just thinking, how can we portray this concept of who God's character is? And to get to use the gifts that God has given me is really a joy.
AmericanFamilyStudios.net. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim Wildman with Wesley Wildman. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning.
Christopher Woodward. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
So, Brother Fred's off today, right?
Burning some comp time.
Yeah, Fred can't. We during the week of ice that we had. What was it? Last week? Whenever that was.
Yeah, recently, week before last.
Yeah. Fred came in every day while the weenies stayed home.
Yeah, he's Canadian. He's ice skated in.
Yeah.
Singing "Oh Canada" in French.
So Fred pulled double duty for us that week, so he's taking a little time off. So he'll be back later in the week. Fred Jackson, who does an excellent job on this program, and as the head of our AFR News division. Folks, we got a lot of stories to talk about, including the border. There's some serious activity taking place in the Middle East involving our troops, and we're going to talk about that story. There are even U.S. senators calling on the United States to do something militarily against Iran. We'll talk about that. So much to discuss. Wesley Wildman, but I know your eyes are on deer hunting season.
It's actually over now.
Is it over now?
Yeah. Across the country, there's different times and seasons. They all end within a couple weeks of each other. And this is the last weekend. It ends Wednesday technically, but for me,
what does technically mean? You're going to hunt illegally?
No, it means officially there's a deadline and it's Wednesday. But for me, it ended yesterday because of the weekend. Usually I get to hunt during the weekend. So
how long does deer hunting season last?
In Mississippi, it opens up October 1 and ends January 31st.
But that's different kinds of weapons, right?
Yeah, different kinds of weapons. That's right. You got primitive weapon, then you have regular weapons. And
which ones do you use?
All the above.
Bare hands.
All the above. Yes, sir. And then, of course, we're turning our attention to baseball seasons around the corner as well, so looking forward to that. For those that are listening, you can also go to AFR.net. You can stream that live there.
This show
on that there internet.
Yeah, that's what Ed calls it, that their
that
internet.
Their internet. I'm trying to do the best I can to fill in Ed's shoes on a Monday here. His microphone here is twisted up, so I'm trying to help him out for when he gets back in studio.
Yeah, Ed couldn't be here today. He had some kind of plumbing issues at the house that he's had to take care of, which does take priority a bit.
Yes.
That's right.
Sure does. I can relate.
All right.
Absolutely.
Chris, what's the leading story?
Well, we need to be in prayer for our military service members and also the wisdom of our leaders based on what I'm about to share. In the event you have not heard yet, America, 3 American service members were killed and dozens more injured in an overnight drone strike in northeast Jordan near the Syrian border. This happened over the weekend. President Biden, speaking yesterday, said the U.S., quote, shall respond. He has blamed Iran-backed terrorists for the first U.S. fatalities after months of strikes by such groups against American forces across the Middle East since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. As Tim mentioned at the beginning of the program, we've got GOP senators, the national security hawks, if you will, that are calling for Biden to target Iran directly because these are Iran-backed terrorists. They think Iran knew this was going to happen. They funded the effort. They supported the effort, and therefore we must do something to Iran directly. So we are in for a big story here this week.
Yeah, this is a very tense situation in the world, the powder keg that is the Middle East right now. And particularly the Israeli-Hamas war aside, we have troops stationed and we have bases in the Middle East. I didn't even realize this particular base where this drone attack occurred, which killed 3. How many did it injure? Did they report?
Dozens more injured is what the most news reports.
So this was a U.S. military base. Where was it? Where was it?
In Jordan. It's called Tower 22. I had to look it up here. I'm reading from a Reuters story.
On the Jordanian-Syrian border?
Tower 22 holds a strategically important location in Jordan at the most northeastern point where the country's borders meet Syria and Iraq.
I call myself fairly knowledgeable in the area. I had no idea we had a military base in Jordan. It sounds like an outpost of some kind, but I'm sure it's probably to pay attention to what goes on in Syria. And then, of course, we had the war against ISIS, which would have taken place in that part of the world.
Right.
Not necessarily inside Jordan, but over into Iraq and Syria. So, but now the bottom line is here, we've lost 3 servicemen and many others injured in this particular drone attack. And the Biden administration is saying this is, and Republicans are saying this is Iranian-backed terrorism. Okay. Then we've also got the 2 SEALs that we lost last week.
Right.
Do you know? Can you describe the situation where we lost those SEALs? Wesley, you are Chris.
Well, I know that they were on a mission to stop Iranian
rebels.
Rebels,
if that's what you want to call them, or terrorists. Yeah,
that's correct. And then, as a result of them trying to get on to the ship that they were going to stop, then therefore we've lost them. And then, of course, that we haven't recovered their bodies, but after a certain period of time, which I believe was 10 or 12 days, they announced that they were dead at sea.
Yeah. So we're losing lives.
That's
what
right.
I'm saying, of American troops in the Middle East, and almost everybody's blaming Iran, which leads us to yesterday, Senator Lindsey Graham. Did you have his quote?
I don't have his quote. I can dig it up for you.
He said, "Bomb Iran now." And also Mitch McConnell, according to Drudge, and I don't read Drudge all the time, but they do have a lead story saying Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, says we need to strike against Iran. Iran, I've heard it pronounced both ways forever. So
Senator Graham has for many months now wanted us to bomb Iran for many reasons. So
yeah,
this
that's
is
not
just
a
the latest
surprise
one.
there. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Every now and then he gets it right, though. I think this is a good time to do that if you're going to do it.
Yeah, it's a problem because, it could escalate. It could escalate, and you've got Iran backing Hamas. Of course, we've known that forever, and Hezbollah in the north in Israel. You've got the let's bring Abe in here, Abraham Hamilton III. Good morning, Abe.
Good morning.
Feel free to comment on this story. You also have the do you call him Houthi?
Houthi or Houthi? Yeah.
Okay.
Houthi rebels.
These are Iranian-backed militants, if that's what you want to call them, in Yemen. And they're trying to attack U.S. vessels, both merchant and military, out in the is that the Arabian Sea? I think it's the Arabian Sea. Anyway, it's a very, very tense situation there, and could what to me what is worrisome is who is running our country right now, because listen, President Biden, we all see what's going on there. He's not in charge day to day. He's reading off a teleprompter as best he can and trying to campaign. So that leaves in charge of our country a Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. Did he step down? Did I miss that? Isn't he still in charge?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, he was hospitalized and didn't tell the president. He's the
Whoever knew where Lloyd Austin was is running the country.
okay. Well, then
That's right.
Listen, I think the two people that are running the country, at least our international decisions, are being made by the Secretary of Defense. Excuse me, not Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor. Those two gentlemen.
And I can't prove this, but I think, well, let me say it this way in a form of a question. How many times have we ever seen a person who leaves the White House but moves less than 5 miles from the White House to a mansion in Gallerama in Washington, D.C., yet we have an amazing press pool, not amazing, but just say a robust press pool in Washington, D.C., yet we've not seen one story about who comes and goes from the Colorado mansion in these last 3 years or so. I find that remarkably.
They're busy.
We don't find out what now?
There's been no stories about who comes and goes to this Colorado mansion that's 5 miles from the White House, that is owned by the former White House occupant, Barack Obama. His house literally is down the street, but there've been no stories about.
Are you suggesting he's running the country?
I think he knew Lloyd Austin was in the hospital when.
I see what you're saying.
Joe Biden didn't know.
Interestingly enough, guys, CBS, I shared this link a moment ago. Secretary Austin is expected to be back at work today. Talk about your first day back.
Well, listen, he should have notified the president, the White House. He's a cabinet member. I don't know how you aren't fired for that.
I have no clue, because he's in the line of the nuclear armament process.
Yeah, and he's like we're 4th or 5th on the list, right?
Yes.
Down as far as being responsible for the military.
I'll tell you who's de facto the president of the United States right now, and that's Anthony Blinken. He is the Secretary of State. And
also an Obama holdover.
Fourth in line to the presidency, Blinken is.
Mm-hmm. Also, the other gentleman, the National Security Advisor. What's his name?
Kirby.
I'm drawing. Huh?
John Kirby.
John Kirby.
Yeah.
Those two men right now, to me, just observing here, those two guys right there are running the country. Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah, not on domestic issues, but on international issues for certain. Well, we need to. We're so saddened by the loss of our
military.
The three that died because of this drone strike. It's also disconcerting to me that we couldn't shoot this drone down before it got there. So how vulnerable are our military stationed in the Middle East? Of course, they're always under the threat of being attacked by these Iran or their proxies. But you have this situation now where it's just, as I say, it's just a powder keg. So, all right, I want to switch topics for just a moment, and we want to talk about the biggest news story domestically is what's happening at the southern border, and the confrontation now that exists between Texas and the federal government, potentially, with Biden. Okay, Abe, so the scenario, I think everybody listening, if you've been paying attention, knows what has happened now in the last 72 hours or so is that Governor Abbott of Texas has basically said, if I can put it in D. Snyder vernacular, we're not going to take it anymore. For those who don't know, that was a rocker back in the day, and he used to sing a song about we're not going to take it anymore. And so Texas has said we are defending our borders because the federal government is not. The federal government is allowing an invasion across the Texas border and letting Texas and Arizona in particular, have let millions of people into the country and continuing to let people into the country illegally by the hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes on a daily basis. So my question to you is, Abe, as a constitutional lawyer, and does the state of Texas, and by the way, Governor Abbott has received almost universal support from other Republican governors.
25 other Republican governors. One holdout is the Vermont governor.
Was that right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it begs the question: does the governor of Texas have the constitutional right to do what he's doing right now, sending the National Guard down there and all those things?
To answer your question, I'm going to do something that seems to be novel in our day and age. I'm actually going to read from the U.S. Constitution. Article 1, Section 10, also often described as the Compact Clause. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 says this, quote, "No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war, unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay." The U.S. Constitution includes within the text of its articles the lawful authority for states to act when they are being actually invaded. For someone to adopt the premise that individual states will not be allowed to protect themselves in the absence of federal protection is woefully ignorant of the constitutional process. Our U.S. Constitution would not have been ratified if states were beholden exclusively to a federal government in instances of invasion. I'm reading this because I think there's an intentional effort to limit discussion of what's happening on our border to migrancy in an effort to avoid what the U.S. Constitution says, that in circumstances of actual invasion, states have the lawful authority to protect themselves.
And interesting, that does not say a militant invasion.
It says actual invasion. And if you read the Federalist Papers, the historical uses of this terminology, you had the two components of physical encroachment onto the land as well as enmity against the sovereignty of the state or our United States of America. And I think you can make a solid argument. We consider things like the cartels and the smuggling of fentanyl, and as is being reported by the Daily Caller just today, El Shabaab terrorists who've entered our country and been allowed to roam around, that there is a literal actual invasion taking place, which gives states the lawful authority to defend themselves.
Quite frankly, and Wesley, you want to comment on this?
Well, I was just going to say that we've seen, I'm looking here, there's been several executive orders that Joe Biden, in his first day in office, that he overturned, in which were in place from the previous administration, the Trump administration and his team, that helped stop or prevent or put a deterrent on immigration. For example,
illegal immigration.
Sorry,
right, yeah.
Illegal aliens, even be more specific. And the reason for that is that, or some numbers to that, at the very highest during the Trump administration in 2019, he had there was around 800,000 illegal aliens that came through the border. And during the Biden administration, year one, there was 2.6 million. So this is just talking about things that are just unprecedented or that are just hard to even imagine, that we've gotten to the point now where we're having conversations about Texas using self-defense for their border is and to think that for a moment that they're going to try to blame this on the Republicans.
Yeah. Listen, this is totally and exclusively the fault of Joe Biden.
100%.
Okay. And the Democrats. Although there are some Democrats like John Fetterman, believe it or not, the senator from Pennsylvania, who is speaking out about this directly and saying, Texas, I don't know if he said Texas has a right to defend itself, but he's saying something's got to be done to stop these millions of people from coming into our country illegally. This is Fetterman. I think this is an albatross that Joe Biden has put around his own neck.
And it'll be the single worst thing that he's done during his presidency.
Yeah, because you're right. On day one, what he thought he would do, Biden on day one, he changed all the regulations and rules and executive orders that Trump had in place to slow down or at least slow down or stop as best he could the illegal immigration into our country. And Biden did away with all those in the name of basically he just wanted to thumb his nose at Trump. Basically, is what he wanted to do. But you remember the Democrats, and I mentioned this before. This is why it's not just Biden; it's the Democrat Party that has allowed this to happen. You remember they had the Democrat debate when there were like 8 or 10 of them running for office, trying to win the Democratic nomination back in, when was that, 2020? And the moderator asked him, this was at a debate in Miami, said, raise your hand if you think we ought to provide free medical care for everyone who comes here. They would call them undocumented. That's how they would say. And all of the candidates, including Joe Biden, raised their hand. So not only did Biden do away with all the rules that Trump had in place to deal with it.
16 executive orders he overturned. Just on immigration alone.
So, and keep in mind, you remember the duplicity of, the double standard that Biden occupied for about a year when he said, we're going to restrict entry into America, and you can only get here if you have a vaccine shot for COVID. You remember that? That's if you were a foreigner, not U.S. citizens. Remember that?
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, he was allowing people to pour in over the border.
That's right.
Who didn't have a vaccine shot.
And they were put on planes.
Yeah.
Flown everywhere.
So this is all Biden's problem. Have we had people coming here illegally forever? Yes, we have. And we've had to deal with that on the border, on the southern border, for a long, long time. Doesn't matter. Each president that has come through has had to deal with this. But Biden was the first one that I know of that intentionally invited a surge. So this is his problem, and it's a big problem for he and the Democrats come November. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to overcome this because they're going to – the only way they can find, I guess, common ground here is to go help stop the surge of people coming in. I mean, it's that simple.
But are we going to have federal forces go down and get into a confrontation with National Guardsmen who not only they're from Texas but other states as well?
I don't expect it to get to that place, but when you have like the Supreme Court ruling not too long ago, and it's amazing, just digging into it a little bit, that the majority in the opinion issued an unsigned order with no reasoning, no rationale, no explanation as to why they implemented the order that would allow the federal government to kind of cut the razor wire that Texas has put up, But then you had 4 justices, Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, who dissented, which showed that Chief Justice John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett was in the majority. But one of the things that Texas argued is that this is unnecessary because this temporary order doesn't even need to be addressed because the full case on the merits is scheduled for oral arguments on February 7th at the Fifth Circuit. So they didn't even have to do anything. Right. Because the case was already fast-tracked to be addressed on the merits. So you have this scenario that this tension between the federal government's inaction, states saying we have the lawful constitutional right to defend ourselves, and in the Supreme Court unnecessarily intervening in this instance because the full case on the merits is going to be heard on the 7th with oral arguments.
Yeah, you want to see things change immediately. If millions of people were coming from Virginia into the District of Columbia every year, well, in the last 6 months, tens of thousands.
8 million over 3 years.
That's right. That's the number you're looking at.
Okay, under Biden, 8 million people have come here illegally,
right,
and are here, and they've been dispersed all over America,
all over our country.
So my point is, if you had tens of thousands a day pouring over from Virginia into the District of Columbia, wonder how fast it would take the Congress,
well, that's one reason,
or the Supreme Court to rule on this.
And maybe you will get there, but that's one reason this is even becoming an issue in the eyes of the media is because we are putting them on buses and planes and putting them in these sanctuary cities, and that's forcing their hands to have to talk about this. So that's been. Well, maybe that's the next stop we need to go, D.C.
Yeah, well, some of them are there, but it's just this is a terrible problem that's been created intentionally by Biden.
Yep.
And the Democrats, but particularly Joe Biden alone. We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn. Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Proverbs 10 and 9. He who walks in integrity walks securely. During the Korean War, a very well-known American general by the name of Dean was captured by the communists. I distinctly remember reading about that in the papers. In a Korean town by the name of Cheongju, General Dean was told by the communists that he had a few minutes in which he could write a farewell note to his family. General Dean figured that he had about 30 minutes at the most before he would be taken out and shot. In such a situation, no man would waste words. General Dean did not waste words. In his letter to his family, very short, he had one sentence which told the whole of his character. The sentence was directed to General Dean's son. Here's what he wrote. Tell Bill the word is integrity. The most important word this father could find to pass along to his son spoke so much. Not popularity or success or fame or happiness, but integrity. How desperately our world needs that, integrity. Integrity means a person is true to himself and to his Maker. Integrity means a person puts truth above all else. He's not willing to sell himself for a few dollars or a cheap thrill. No. He sets his standards high, and they will not come down. A person can afford to lose his position, his income, his prestige. These things are dispensable. They can be replaced, but not his integrity. A person can live with truth, though it be difficult and trying. But no person can live with a lie and remain a person in the highest and truest sense of the word. We're tempted today to compromise our values, to call a little wrong nearly right. But one cannot do it without losing that which is most important, integrity. A person must stand for the truth even if it means loss of a job or prestige or scorn and rejection by those who call him friend. Tell Bill the word is integrity. Yes, that's the word. How very much we need to hear it, believe it, live by it. Not success, not popularity, not position, but integrity. The word means uprightness. That's the way the Creator intended that mankind should walk upright, not only in physical structure, but more precisely in our spiritual and moral structure. We're not only to live with truth, but we are also to live by it. What the world needs today is not more people of wealth, not even more people of wisdom. What the world needs today is more people of integrity, people who are willing to plant their feet solidly on the truth and refuse to budge even when faced by the temptations of the world. Yes, we need people, big people, people of solid character, people who will not compromise with less than truth, people who will not retreat from the very best they know. The word is integrity. Please pass the word.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. 2 Corinthians 5:1.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim Wildman with Wesley Wildman and Chris Woodward. We thank you for joining us.
Solving the world's problems.
Hey, one problem at a time right here. Appreciate Abraham Hamilton III giving us some constitutional analysis of the situation that exists on our border now, and the fact that the Biden administration and the governor of Texas basically are at loggerheads. The governor of Texas, and he's got the support universally of all the other 28, whatever it is, Republican governors who've issued statements of support, and some have even sent troops, National Guard troops, to Texas. That the governor there, Abbott, has said no. We're going to stop this invasion into our state, and we're going to do it by force. And we're going to use our National Guardsmen and other law enforcement personnel. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. Also, too, after, of course, when this story broke of the Supreme Court making their ruling, then Abbott making his comments and his position. AFA obviously looked into this. Had Jenna Ellis on the radio last week to talk about it from a constitutional standpoint. Have Abe in house, and we met, and we are in 100% support of Governor Abbott, and we have a petition up on our website at afa.net. At afa.net, we've had over nearly 26,000 signatures in support of Governor Abbott. So you can go to afa.net, sign that petition saying that you stand with Governor Abbott in order to protect our borders, because as Walker Wildman, my brother, pointed out this morning in our meeting, that we're now at a point, because now it's been like this for many years, but even more so what I'm about to say, because of these governors like Abbott are busing illegal aliens across the country, that every state now is a border state to some degree, because they're going all over the country. And so this is becoming very important for other states to be involved. And I do think, was it Ron DeSantis that had that idea, that led that effort to actually send?
Well, it was Abbott first.
Abbott
I think
first.
Governor DeSantis, of course,
It.
if you remember, sent some of the illegal immigrants or aliens into Martha's Vineyard.
That's
remember
right.
that?
Yep.
Rich enclave in New England, and got them all. Of course, they when they got there, those people said, we need to get the unclean people out of our town.
Yeah.
So they shipped them off somewhere else. Yeah, the liberals, they're all too eager to let Texas and deal with all these people. But if they come to their cities, then they want to complain and whine. We all seen that open hypocrisy going on with these lefty mayors in New York, Chicago, Denver, San Francisco, and other places. But this is a big issue right now. It's a big political issue. Biden is going to claim that he needs legislation to do something to stop this. That's what they're about to do. We don't have time to get into that or to cover it, and I'm still reading about it. But he's going to say that if the Republicans don't pass such and such legislation, his hands are tied. That's to borrow from Biden malarkey. If you're telling me the president of the United States doesn't have the right to defend his own country, that's what Biden is arguing. That's patently false, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to do anything. Because here's what the ultimate goal is, and I don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist, and if this makes me a conspiracy theorist, then so be it. The Democrats want to allow millions of people to pour into our country illegally with the goal of someday soon making them citizens.
Mm-hmm.
If they can make these millions of people citizens, then the Democrats, they will be the champions of the illegal immigrants who then become legal, and they vote. And they will be a voting bloc that will be committed to the Democrats forever, much like the African-American vote is. This goes back to Lyndon Johnson, the Great Society, the welfare Great Society. And now the African-American vote is 90% Democrat.
Yeah, but before you even get there, though, another reason is they're really good, the Democratic Party, and President Biden is really good at creating problems and then trying to solve it with spending more money. And so they're creating a lot of problems, both economically, both from a health standpoint. Obviously, I mean, to say the least, terrorism standpoint, they're creating a lot of problems in which they're going to have, in allowing the flood of illegal aliens to come across the border at 8 million in 3 years, allowing that to happen, you're creating all kind of problems in which you can it's one thing to come in and fix a problem that you didn't start, but you're trying to help. But when you're creating the problem and then trying to come back and solve it by like you're saying, by saying, well, if I can't get if the Republicans won't sign fill in the blank, then I can't do it. Well, you've created this problem, and it's going to cause a lot of problems, obviously economically, and the ones that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The left will try to sell this on the American people with help from groups like Chamber of Commerce or Big Ag, because the stated reason is these people can come out of the shadows, they can pay taxes.
You mean if you give them a, quote, pathway to citizenship?
Correct. Or you just, say, hey, you're American now through executive order, something like that.
Yeah.
And then ag groups will say we need somebody to help pick the crops, because there have been groups that are heavily involved in agriculture that have said we need to do immigration reform so that way we can have people to help pick our crops. Because, and this has always irked me, like, we're a nation born out of an agrarian society, and our people are too good now to help pick sweet potatoes. So we got to bring in somebody else to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, joining us now is Stephen McDowell. Stephen's the president of the Providence Foundation, based in Virginia. And Stephen and I have been doing the spiritual heritage tours for 20 plus years together, and invited him on. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, Tim, and all you fellows. How you doing?
Are you in Charlottesville? Where are you today?
I am in Charlottesville, and hey, before I forget about it, I need to congratulate you, Tim, because I was listening to your show on Friday, and you got the question right of what was Pocahontas' Christian name.
So, see there, I am paying attention when you talk.
Yeah, that surprised me. You've only heard it 20 times. I'm glad you got it.
And I didn't even hesitate. Rebecca.
You got it quick. Yeah, that's great.
That's one of the, Stephen gives a talk when we're in Jamestown about Pocahontas, because there's a statue there of her, and that's when he tells about her English name, her name post-conversion, post-baptism. There. I want to ask you, you studied, obviously, Stephen, our history and the U.S. history and Constitution and so forth. Do you think, how would our founding fathers ever imagine that we would elect a president of the United States who would seek to sabotage his own country? And by sabotage, I'm talking about the way Biden just threw open the borders and said, y'all come from around the world. And anyway, you want to comment on that?
Well, our founders certainly were very concerned of giving a chief executive too much power. That was really a sticking point in ratification of the United States Constitution, because they saw the historically how when you give too much power to an individual, the result is loss of liberty. They experienced tyranny with King George III themselves and knew about it in history. So they certainly saw the potential of one man abusing authority, and really what Biden is doing, it's abusing authority by not carrying out his duty as the chief executive. It's kind of another form of abuse. He's, of course, abused it other ways, centralizing too much power. So they would have been concerned, but what we see taking place today is far removed from the worldview of the founders of America, and they would be deeply disturbed.
Well, like some have said, I know Governor DeSantis of Florida and some others have said recently, Stephen, about the constitutionality and the political situation with respect to the governor of Texas. Texas would have never agreed to enter the Union if they had been told, oh, by the way, you can't defend yourself if you're invaded.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no nation would have.
Right.
None of them would have done that at all. That they covenanted together because they had a common set of ideas and values. And, of course, chief among them is protecting our property, our life, liberty,
Right.
and property. And that's the chief function of civil government. That's why we created it in the first place.
Okay, do you understand, Stephen? I'm throwing this at Stephen without telling him in advance what I was going to ask him about, so you may or may not want to comment on this. It seems to me what the left is saying is Listen, all these people are coming to our country and claiming asylum. They deserve their hearing before an asylum judge. And so we're just letting them, we're just telling them to come back in 3 or 4 years while we're letting all of them into the interior of our country like they're going to come back, like these people are going to come back for a year. What do we say about the asylum, the history of the asylum process and how that's being abused?
Well, when you read the Bible and how the Bible looks at aliens or foreigners, certainly our heart is for their good. Our heart is for them to experience all the great liberty there is in Christ. But a key component for any person becoming part of the new nation is to agree to the covenant. You had non-Jewish people become part of the Old Testament Israel, but they had to agree to the covenant, God's law, His word, the understanding, how does this nation work and exist? What's the foundational principles of that? And so here in the United States, we have foundational principles rooted in biblical truth, even though most Americans don't know that today. And really, to become a citizen, that's the primary thing. You've got to agree to the covenant, which means you have to know the covenant. You can't even be considered becoming a citizen until that is met. So if we're just overrun by millions and millions of people, and if any type of action that would incorporate them as citizens without them knowing, understanding, and agreeing to the covenant, I think is a violation of the central premise of how you get new citizens from other nations.
Yeah. Talking to Stephen McDowell of the Providence Foundation. Steve, I want to get into a couple of places we're going to visit on our tour, but I'm going to ask you this, Stephen. What book or books have you written that you would recommend people who want to study about the true American history of our country?
Well, our book, America's Providential History, which has been out for about 35 years, I think, of course I'm biased, but I think it's the best book that you could read to introduce you to God's hand in our history. And it teaches much more than God's hand in our history. It teaches biblical principles of law, government, education, foreign policy, and things like this. So that's what I would recommend first. We have lots of others. You can see those on our website at providencefoundation.com. But the book, America's Providential History, I think is the ideal way to begin.
So you can get a copy of America's Providential History, folks, at Stephen's website. What is that website again?
It's providencefoundation.com.
Okay, so Stephen, you and I have been doing the Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon tours for 20-plus years. About 7 or 8 years ago, whenever it was, we decided to add a tour to Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown, which we're doing in June and September of this year again. And I wanted to tease this for our listeners for just a moment because, and let them know maybe a couple of the highlights that we'll be seeing on those on that tour, the Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. First of all, we're going to the original site in Jamestown, true?
Yeah, the Jamestown is the site of the first permanent English settlement. And so today we can go and stand at the very site that those first settlers came in the spring of 1607, and we'll learn their story. We'll see the difficulty they went through. We'll look at their motives. Why did they come here in the first place as well? Now, there's no houses or buildings at the site of Jamestown, but it is a historic park. There is a rebuilt church because the church was the center of their community, and that are there. There's some monuments statues we'll see, like you mentioned, Pocahontas, and we'll learn how she was converted to the Christian faith in 1614 because, as the Charter of Virginia said, one primary reason they came was to propagate the gospel to those that were living here that were ignorant of this liberating message. And she was the most famous early convert, but many others were converted. So we'll learn of her story and learn about her baptism in the church at Jamestown. We'll learn about John Smith and how God providentially used him, and the role of the church, and many other things. So that we'll spend good half the day, walking around that area and learning this fascinating story and seeing the providence of God and the miraculous hand of God in that early settling.
Oh, so in the morning we go to Jamestown, in the afternoon we go to Yorktown. What's special about Yorktown?
Well, Yorktown is the site of the last major battle in the American Revolution. So Jamestown, 1607, for the next 170 years, colonies forming. Of course, people may remember in 1776, we declared our independence. The year before, we had started fighting a war. In 8 years, we fought for our independence to gain liberty from the tyrant. In 1781, the last major battle of the war took place in Yorktown. So we'll go to Yorktown. We'll hear of how God miraculously used the weather to turn these events to assure a victory for the American cause, because God supported the cause of American liberty. And so we'll stand on the site where the battle took place, where Washington directed the troops there. And so that's why it's significant, because, after the victory at Yorktown, after we won, the Continental Congress proclaimed a day of prayer and thanksgiving. So they recommended everybody go to church, give thanks to God. He gave us this victory. And that really victory is what assured that we are a nation today.
Okay, so morning we go to Jamestown, the afternoon we go to Yorktown. The next day we see Colonial Williamsburg. Give us an overview of what we'll see in Colonial Williamsburg.
Now, Williamsburg is very significant in the early history of America. It was the capital of Virginia from like 1700 to the next 80 years. But when the American Revolution broke out, events that affected our history took place there. George Washington was often there as a member of the Virginia legislature. Patrick Henry, the great orator of the American Revolution, was there as well. And so we're going to see some of these early buildings. There's 88 structures that date from colonial times that are still there in Colonial Williamsburg. And so we're going to visit the governor's palace and visit the magazine where the arms were kept. We're going to visit the Capitol building where Patrick Henry gave one of his famous speeches early on that helped inspire and motivate people. And we'll visit the College of William and Mary, the second university founded in America, and look at the Christian nature of early education in America. We'll visit Bruton Parish Church, which is a focal point of every community in early America, and learn of the influence of the colonial ministers, how they were the founding fathers of America. As John Adams said, without the colonial ministers, we would never have become a nation. So we'll learn of kind of all of these events, and we'll be seeing original buildings from which a lot of these significant events occurred. And so, when you see these things and hear the story, it really helps make an impression. Okay, now I understand, how this took place. And it's easy to learn these stories when you're standing right on there, because it's like we're a living book. We're in a living history is taking place, as opposed to just reading something in a book.
All right. So anyway, folks, this is June and September of this year. Stephen McDowell, who you've been listening to, he and I will lead these tours. Wesley or Walker will be along with us, and our wives. So if you want to go with us, either on the Williamsburg, Jamestown, Yorktown tour, or the Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon tour, or you can do both. If you want to stay with us from Saturday to Saturday, we'll take care of you from Saturday to Saturday, and you can see all this stuff that we've talked about. So the website to read the dates, the cost, the itinerary, everything is spiritualheritagetours.com. Spiritualheritagetours with an S.com, spiritualheritagetours.com. Hey, one question. You mentioned Jamestown. What was was Jamestown first, or were the Pilgrims in Plymouth Rock, was that first?
Well, Jamestown was 13 years before the Pilgrims. And in fact, if Jamestown had not survived as a colony, no businessmen would have backed the Pilgrims to come over to there. So Jamestown was the first. permanent English settlement in America, and God miraculously preserved it, without which there would have been no pilgrims who came and settled up hundreds of miles north of Jamestown 13 years after that.
So that means no Thanksgiving, which would mean no turkey and dressing our football on Thanksgiving Day. That's how much this meant to our country.
Or sweet potato casserole.
Sweet potato casserole. There are a lot of things that wouldn't
Fried
have happened.
turkey.
Yeah.
Stuffing or dressing or both.
All right. All right, Stephen, thanks so much, and appreciate you being on with us and sharing that. There's so much rich history to our story of America. You can read all about it and God's hand on our country with Stephen's book, America's Providential History, which you can get at his website, providencefoundation.com. All right. Thank you, Stephen. Talk to you later.
All right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, guys. Bye.
Okay.
There's another book that he's written a bunch of books, but there's a book called God's Blueprint for Life, Liberty, and Property. It's a Bible study of the 10 Commandments, in which it's a short read. I think it's like 90 pages, and a handful of it's fill in the blank like a catechism. I've gone through that. I've done it with a Sunday school class, and it's a really good book on helping us understand and apply the Bible in general, but specifically the 10 Commandments to our everyday life, and it helps inspire us and motivate us to not leave our Christian worldview at church, but to carry it with us in every sphere of life, whether that be in business, whether that be in politics, whether that be at home with your family. And so
What's the name of the book?
God's Blueprint for Life, Liberty, and Property, a Bible study of the 10 Commandments, or a catechism of the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
AFA helped sponsor this particular book.
Yeah, I have shared a link to that book as well as the other ones Stephen mentioned, so do check out the Facebook section of this show for those comments to the AFA Resource Center, formerly known as the AFA Store.
I've gone through that Bible study at least 3 times, and then I reference back to it many times throughout my Christian walk. So it's a really, really, really good book on applying the Bible's worldview to your everyday life.
So don't just be a Christian within the 4 walls of your church on Sunday or
That's
Wednesday.
what I'm saying.
But Monday through Saturday as well.
Yes, right. Amen to that. Yes,
on your
sir.
own property.
Oh, yes, right.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. We got about 2 minutes left here, for 2 or 3 minutes left for this this hour. Chris, what else you got?
Well, I do want to bring people's attention to something we have posted on afn.net. We have for many months now talked about the male swimmer named Will Thomas, who wants to go by a female's name. Everybody knows his story. He wants to compete against girls and has in fact dominated the sport of swimming ever since he got permission to swim against girls in girls swimming. The reason I'm bringing this up today is because on afn.net, our website, we have an op-ed from Susan Bowdy with the Washington Stand, the news outlet for Family Research Council. Apparently, Mr. Thomas is trying to sue to overturn rules for the 2024 Olympics to allow more males against females in the upcoming Olympic Games. So do go to afn.net to point this out. This comes at a time in which many people, Riley Gaines and others, have been speaking out against it.
You want to ruin the Olympic Games? You let that happen. Mm-hmm. You let this dude who calls himself a girl race against girls in the Olympics. Now, I don't know. He may or may not win because you are talking about the best female athletes in the world, but he's still a male. Mm-hmm. He's a male with more muscle mass,
lung capacity. The list goes on when it comes to.
Yeah, you can't allow that. That should be a big fat no from the Olympic Committee. So he's suing. Who's he suing?
He's suing. Let me point out the beginning. Let me pop up her article here. He has filed a lawsuit. It's being reported by the Telegraph, BBC, and other news outlets. He's trying to get the World Aquatics to change their ways here. The list goes on and on.
Okay.
Your introduction to him being a her was phenomenal, by the way. I thought you handled that really well.
Oh, hey, if his mama called him Will, I'm going to call him Will.
That's right. You made it very simple.
We'll be back in 5 minutes with more of Today's Issues. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Hey, have you seen the AFR logo canvas duffel bag? There's plenty of room in the main compartment for big stuff, a front pocket for those smaller items, and a mesh pocket for your water bottle to help you stay hydrated. Double reinforced handles and an adjustable shoulder strap make it easy to carry, and the logo on the side is a great way to let others know about AFR. They're available now at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The Biden administration is facing immense pressure to respond to an attack by an Iranian-backed drone Sunday that killed 3 U.S. service members and injured dozens more in Jordan. Peter Ducey reports at the White House.
The trend line that officials in the Situation Room are tracking is troubling, despite President Biden's declaration that Iran would tone things down 2 weeks ago.
I've already delivered the message to Iran. They know not to do anything.
That is not true based on the events of the 2 weeks that have followed. And it's not like the Iranians have only ignored one warning from President Biden. Here's this from October, just after the attack on Israel.
We're sending more fighter jets there in that region and made it clear to the Iranians, be careful.
The president's comment about the deadly attack on American barracks in Jordan is, have no doubt, we will hold all those responsible to account at a time and in a manner of our choosing. Republicans are saying they hope that's inside Iran.
House Republicans released a draft of their impeachment articles against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for his handling of illegal immigration at the U.S. southern border. Texas Republican congressional candidate Mayra Flores is trying to reclaim the seat she lost in the November midterms. She says impeachment is long overdue.
I've been asking for this impeachment for over a year now. Just last month alone, we had over 300,000 illegal crossings in here into the United States, and we've never seen anything like this before.
An immigration enforcement organization says it is not just Republicans who are condemning Biden's border policies.
The heated battle between Greg Abbott and President Biden is showing no signs of cooling as the embattled Texas governor continues a standoff with the federal government in the Texas border town of Eagle Pass that has become ground zero in the border battle. But Abbott is not standing up to the administration alone. Half of the nation's governors, 25 Republicans, released a joint statement supporting the Texas governor stepping up to protect American citizens from historic levels of illegal aliens, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and terrorists entering our country. Ira Melman is media director for the Federation for American Immigration Reform.
Pretty much every state is feeling the impact of the border crisis that the Biden administration has created. They are recognizing that it is unsustainable, and they support Governor Abbott's efforts to stem the tide. I suspect there are probably a lot of Democratic governors who wish they could sign on to that also, but for political reasons are unable to do so.
But Melman says there are congressional Democrats who are not happy with Biden's policy.
There were 14 House Democrats who signed on to a resolution basically condemning the Biden administration's border policies. So everybody at this point recognizes the harm that's being done. Obviously, there is an ideological wing of the Democratic Party that supports this, but for the most part, people across the political spectrum are appalled at what they're seeing going on down there, and they're seeing the impact right in their hometowns. It's not just a border issue.
I'm Chad Groening.
At a rally in Conway, South Carolina, the state's former governor, Nikki Haley, attacked former President Donald Trump for fixating on his legal troubles on the campaign trail.
Every time he does that, he's not talking about the debt that we're dealing with. He's not talking about Social Security that Congress is robbing. He's not talking about the fact that our kids can't read. He's not talking about the fact that we've got an unsecure border and it only takes one person for a 9/11 moment.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz announces he's endorsing former President Donald Trump in the presidential primary. Senator Cruz explains why he chose the former president over Haley.
Nikki Haley has no path, zero path to winning the nomination. I've endorsed Donald Trump because the race is over. He will be the Republican nominee, and I think it is a very, very easy choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, which direction the country should go.
And finally, Janice Dean with your Monday forecast.
A quiet day for much of the country. We have an exiting storm over the Northeast that will bring remaining light snow for New England, the Great Lakes, and the Appalachians. The Pacific Northwest is going to get active again this week, but for now we've got light rain rain for the coastal area. The biggest story will be the above-average temperatures, especially over the northern and central U.S. and upper Midwest, where it will feel like the beginning of spring instead of the end of January. I'm Janice Dean, Fox News.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Peter.
What does the American Family Association stand for?
AFA aims to evangelize the lost and disciple the believer. AFA aims to strengthen biblical marriages and equip parents to raise godly children.
These values and more are part of our mission to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. We want to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. Thank you for standing with us.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the program Today's Issues. We got 24 and a half more minutes to go on this program on this Monday. I don't even think I told folks what day it was. I know they count on me for that. I don't think I did.
You did not.
My bad. Today's Monday, January 29th, 2024. I'm Tim Wildman with Wesley Wildman. Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. I hope nobody stayed home and thought it was Saturday or something because you didn't let them know to go to work.
I usually usually tell folks what day it is, but failed to do that in the last hour. So, Steve, you grew up in Northern California, right?
I did.
So, did you grow up a San Francisco 49er fan?
I grew up an Oakland Raider fan. I remember going to see the Raiders when Kenny Stabler was. I saw George Blanda play quarterback.
Well, that's way back. That's 60s right there.
No, it was the 70s. It was the end of his career, and he stepped in.
He was like, at the time, he was like the oldest quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, he was. It wasn't in his heyday. I mean, he was still the kicker at that time, but he was his last year, and I think they put him in when the Raiders were up by a bunch of points or something like that. They just put him in, but I got to see him play. Kenny Stabler, Fred Biletnikoff, and I've been a Raider fan for my whole life.
Yeah, of course they moved now. They were in Oakland.
Uh-huh.
Then they moved to L.A. Then they moved back to Oakland. Now they're in
Las Vegas. And it upset me when they moved to L.A. I thought, I'm an Oakland Raider fan. I'm an Oakland Raider fan. But now I realize that it doesn't matter. I'm going to see just as many Raiders games on TV from Las Vegas as I would have from Oakland, now that I don't live in the area.
There is a rumor out there that Oakland will get another NFL franchise, and the name will be the Oakland Carjackers.
It could be. It would. It might be
the Oakland Carjackers, and I don't know where they'll put them in the league, but that's the rumor. So
we'll I'm looking here. Apparently, the Raiders are so they have not gone PC with the name and the is it the logo or not the logo?
Well, nobody has a thing about pirates.
Okay,
it's not like
is that what it represents? Pirates, Raiders,
like Raiders, pirates.
Yeah,
the autumn wind.
Well, you have the Pittsburgh Pirate baseball team and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
There's no racial thing about pirates. Nobody has a problem with pirates.
We can create things.
Yeah, I'm sure some of them they will.
Hurt feelings.
The only problem
alone. I know.
Pirates. Good guys other than pillaging and
no,
killing.
They're not good guys. But I mean, if you want to, it's not like you got like an African American or an Indian.
It has nothing to do with ethnicity.
No,
fair enough.
There were pirates of all colors in the back in the day, so to speak. All right. Well, listen. One thing I wanted to point out yesterday. I used this in our staff devotion this morning. I was watching the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens yesterday, and there was a player on the Ravens. He's a wide receiver. And he made a great play. The Chiefs were ahead. The Ravens were trying to get some momentum and rally. And then this player gets tackled on the 9-yard line, so he's about to score. And then he pushes the Kansas City Chiefs defender down on the ground. This is in front of the whole world. And then he gets up and taunts him by standing over him. And he got a 15-yard penalty. And I just thought, you know what? This is a life lesson, really. if you want to teach, now I know we're all susceptible to making mistakes in the heat of the moment, but this player basically cost his team a chance to score right there. Now he did later. This same player fumbled in the end zone.
His name was Zay Flowers.
Yeah, well, you just outed him.
And then like the whole country didn't see it, right?
And then he went to the sideline and injured his hand because he slammed it down on the bench. What I'm saying is, he cost his team a potential chance to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they'd have won the game anyway because he completely and totally lost self-control. And if you ask him this morning, he probably regrets it. But at the same time, I read the biblical admonition, Wesley, that we as Christians, that's one of the fruits of the Spirit, is self-control, right?
It is.
So self-control and lack of self-control or discipline it's a biblical admonition or virtue, if you will, that is self-control, a fruit of the Spirit, that you can also say damages you out there even in the world, so to speak.
Absolutely. Right? That's why much, if not, or a whole lot of the scriptures, and we talked about the 10 Commandments before the break, everyone benefits from them, whether you are a Christian or not. Everybody benefits from me having self-control.
Yeah.
Everybody benefits. His whole team would have
benefited
benefited
love one another.
If you love one another. We all benefit from it, whether we are adhered to or whether we identify as being a born-again believer or not. So we should be promoting the biblical idea of self-control, which is a fruit of the Spirit, which is evidence for a Christian. It's one of the many evidence of a Christian is
the fruit of the Spirit.
The fruits of the Spirit, which is self-control. Speaking about Zay Flowers, I just learned here that he is a rookie. Mm-hmm. So you hear the old saying, "It's a rookie mistake." Well, that was a rookie mistake to say the least, and hopefully Zay Flowers learns from that. And
it was a taunting call. He stood up over the Kansas City guy like he was taunting him.
Sure.
And what I thought was, if you're going to commit a penalty, at least try to hide it a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Under the pile.
He just did it. Yeah. He just did it in front of the whole world out there. It was, anyway, it cost his team big time. All right. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Hey, Steve,
yes,
before we get into topics that you're going to mention, the Republican primary process is going on at least for another month. South Carolina is next up, and it'll be Nikki Haley versus Donald Trump. As Governor DeSantis dropped out, as did Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out, those two. So basically you're down to two people, and Trump's heavily favored, which causes people to start thinking about, well, who will Trump pick as his vice president? And I found this interesting. This is Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., right? He's running for president as an independent. He was a lifelong Democrat, but he's running as an independent because he has no chance to beat Biden so he decided, I'm going to switch over to an independent. But anyway, he was asked about being the VP for Trump, and this is what he said.
I'd also asked him about something I'd heard President Trump had called him early on and asked him about being his VP. I asked if it were true. Take a look.
If he asked you that today, what would your response be?
I would not take that job. I'm flattered that President Trump would offer it to me, but it's not something that I'm interested in.
Did he reach out, or his team?
People from the team have reached out to me.
I'd also...
Anyway, I thought that was interesting.
I'm glad he's saying no.
Why?
I don't think he'd be, he might be an effective vice president better than what we've got now, but he's still a Democrat at heart, and I don't think he's going to have the policies that we would want. He's known, and the reason people like him is because of his pushback on vaccines.
That's right.
And he's kind of got maybe a populist version of the Democrat Party, but I don't think on life, or I don't think on marriage, I don't think on a whole lot of things that he'd line up with.
Second Amendment.
Second Amendment, yeah. I just,
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I think that would be a mistake. But it is evident. What I'm saying is that was rumored that Trump had reached out to see his level of interest, I guess, in being Trump's VP, and he said he's not interested in that. He wants to run his own campaign. He doesn't want to be somebody's vice president. But I just found that
it concerns me.
Why?
Well, because I was talking with Bob Vanderplatz a month or so ago, who's he's with the
Iowa family
leader.
Yes.
Anyway, he's a political knowledgeable about politics. He's got a good reputation of knowing what's going to happen, of being able to predict things. And I was interviewing him, and he, at that point, had said that he would throw his endorsement to Ron DeSantis. And he said he did.
Yeah.
And I asked him, one of the questions I asked him, I said, Donald Trump was quite verbose in 2016. He called people names. He tweeted things that everybody cringed about. I mean, he was a lot the same in 2016, but I asked him, is he the same candidate in 2024 as he was in 2016? And Bob Vanderplat said, well, that's a good question, and no. The answer is no. 2016, he was the up-and-comer. He had aspirations. He had dreams for the country, even if he expressed them,
crudely
or
unfiltered.
But now, he, according to Vanderplatz and what I've seen, he's got a lot of bitterness, a lot of anger, a lot of unhinged going on, it seems to me.
And a lot of people would say he deserves to feel that way.
Well, no, I don't. I don't doubt that. I just would hope.
No, I'm just saying.
Talking about self-control.
Yeah. Well, we will see. Well, he's going to be the nominee.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley would have to shock the world to beat him in South Carolina or anywhere else, even though she does have her supporters.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be interesting who, after this, probably after South Carolina, if he announces who his VP candidate will be, who his VP will be, and I guess you can put the rest that it won't be RFK Jr. Wesley.
Yeah, well, his first VP was, in 2016, he went with Mike Pence. Another person that's of similar personality as far and constitutionally, that would be someone that would be similar to I just gave his name away. Ben Carson. Ben Carson.
His name's been thrown. His name's out there too.
Ben Carson would be a very. He won with Mike Pence as his VP. He announced that he won a lot of Christians over. A lot of Christians were willing to hear Trump out after Trump picked Mike Pence as his VP.
Right.
And
well, Ben Carson. Yeah, that
would be a similar.
I'm a fan of Ben Carson.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know that.
Well, I thought the same thing about Mike Pence, though. What you're about to say?
Yeah, but that didn't end well.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But you're not. You're not. I don't know how else to say this other than you can't have someone as equally strong of a personality as you do with Trump. You're going to have somebody that's a little bit more passive, a little bit more. And that's not even.
I would have Ben Carson read to America every night.
Yes,
about 9:00. Right. I think that would be a good.
That's what I mean.
He can even read the American history or Constitution.
Call it the bedside chats.
Yeah,
there you go, bedside chats.
But you talk about polar opposite personalities,
and I think it was the same with Mike Pence. And I know the quote didn't end well because of the January 6th and how Trump handled Mike. But up to that point,
it started well.
Yeah, it started well, and up to that point,
they had a good thing going on.
But not many people end well with Trump anyway. So,
well, you only state fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, the short list, as they say, is out there, and so that's the reason I bring up. You bring up Ben Carson potentially. Maybe is it Stefanik? Is that the way you pronounce her name?
Elise Stefanik. Elise Stefanik.
Okay, she's the congresswoman from New York.
Mm-hmm.
She's on that list. Let's see who else.
Tim Scott, the
senator from South Carolina.
I don't know if he's being.
You don't
considered,
gain anything from that, though.
I'll tell you who's lobbying for it is Vivek Ramaswamy.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
see, he's one that him and Trump. I don't see that as complimenting. I see that as competing.
Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy has a big personality, and I don't know that Donald Trump.
That's the point. And
would want somebody who competes with him personality-wise.
Which is why I said Ben
Trump
Carson.
will want somebody who needs a personality transplant.
Yes.
That's what he said about Ron DeSantis. Governor of Florida said he needed a personality transplant. So we'll see.
We'll see
what happens, but that probably is going to be in the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would think.
Yeah.
South Carolina's got to be Nikki Haley's last gasp. I mean, it's her home state. If she doesn't do well there, there's just no chance.
No, she knows that. Yeah, she has to compete, and right now, former President Trump is way ahead in the polls. In the Palmetto State, you're listening to radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. All right, Steve, what's your story?
Let me just a little news update. This probably is not going to need a lot of discussion. I know you guys were talking about the service members that died in Jordan because of the
drone attack.
Sponsored by the Iranians. Fox News is quoting a U.S. official as saying that the reason the drone got past security at this Tower 22 facility is because they sent it in at about the same time that they were expecting a U.S. drone to come in, and they thought it was the U.S. drone for a long time until it was too late. So that's how the Iranian drone got past security.
What now? Explain it to me again. What now?
U.S. official, I'll read this from Fox. U.S. official confirmed to Fox News the drone from an Iranian proxy that killed 3 American service members in Jordan and injured others got past their air defenses for Tower 22 because it was mistaken for a U.S. drone expected to return to the base at the same time.
That's a bad answer.
It might be.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like the dog ate my homework.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you don't have
right
transponder.
Well, my first thought is how did Iran know that? Because the only way Iran would have sent that in is if they knew that
they could have gotten lucky.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that.
Maybe not.
Yeah, well, we don't know, but it sure doesn't look good.
No, that's kind of scary to think you can penetrate American military base because they're confused.
Mm-hmm.
On whose drone it is.
Yep.
Seems like to me you could tell by some kind of an appearance, maybe even. I don't know. That's crazy.
Or GPS tracking, to say the least.
Do we know how many were injured yet? Have they been reported
30.
that?
There were 30 that were injured.
So we got 3 dead and 30 injured.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that's an act of war.
Absolutely.
Huh?
Absolutely.
If you can prove, of course, people are saying, well, what do you need to that it came from Iran.
Well, and
Iran.
Yeah, and then obviously we've talked about Biden and his leadership today at the border, but the administration of Biden, these types of things are increased when you have a president like you've got who has in every aspect weakened military, weaken our military, but also weaken our stage across the world when it comes to don't mess with America, and you're not getting that with Biden administration, and so you're gonna. Yeah. I mean, between that and now I guess the 2 Navy SEALs were not directly because of an attack, but they were on a mission to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Steve.
All right. Let me talk a little bit about our U.S. representative from Michigan. From Ilhan Omar's from
Minnesota.
Minnesota, thank you. And she was talking to a crowd of Somalians in Somali, the language that they speak there. So there was audio of it, but it wouldn't do us any good. But this is what she said. She said the U.S. government is the Somalia is her first priority in Congress, expanding its territory. The U.S. government, quote, will do what we want, nothing else. They must follow our orders. That is how we safeguard the interests of Somalia. Ilhan Omar's first priority, allegiance, is to Somalia, and she's a U.S. citizen.
She said that when she was over there?
No, she said it here.
Oh, she said it in the U.S.?
Yeah,
okay.
To a group of Somalis here.
Well, for those who don't know, in Minnesota, I think it was Obama, the U.S. began to settle a lot of Somalis, which is a country in Africa, in the Twin Cities area. So there's a huge, many thousands of Somali people of Somali descent live in the Twin Cities area, including her, the congresswoman.
Yep.
You wonder, how does she get elected? That's how she gets elected in Congress. So she said Somalia is her first.
She's in Congress to safeguard the interests of Somalia.
That's what you call pandering 101 right there.
Yeah.
Where was America on the list? Was it on the list?
No, actually, she said first allegiance was to Somalia and then to the Democrat Party.
She's a squad member. She's a far lefty right there. She's very anti-Israel, I would call her anti-American in many ways. But anyway, she is a congresswoman from, you've seen her. Most people have seen her. She wears the headdress.
She married her brother, too.
She did.
Can't forget that.
Yeah. That's not good. I wouldn't talk about that if I were her.
No,
she
exactly.
did.
Go ahead.
She married her brother.
Yeah. And she has reasons for that. She said that she did that to help him get citizenship, but
to try to trick the system.
Yeah,
she didn't.
Kind of the opposite of Abraham.
Yeah. We got about 2 minutes, Steve. You got
All
anything
right.
positive and encouraging?
Yes, I do. I want to shout out to dads who are raising their kids with great values. The kind of values we like to see. I have an example of one. Sometimes, as fathers, we tend to maybe speak things that we regret later, but yet, so this is a little girl. She's going to say something 3 times. Her dad called her a name, and the third time you may understand what she's saying, but I'll translate it afterwards. Listen to cut 12.
What's wrong?
Daddy told me to do that.
What?
Daddy told me to do crack.
He what?
He told me to do crack.
Are you serious? Daddy!
Daddy called me a Democrat.
After about the second time I started picking up on it. I thought she said Daddy voted Democrat.
No.
It's like, that's worse.
Where did you get that?
Oh, it's my Twitter feed. Has all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
something like that. I don't know.
That's funny.
Oh, my word.
That's
well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we had something similar when I was growing up. Walker, we would, for whatever, I don't know how it got started, but you would ask him, who is Bill Clinton? And he would just stick his tongue out and make noises.
Oh, yeah,
like
that was back in the, yeah.
Just like that.
He would do that. Seriously.
I did the same thing. And I was like 32.
You were an adult. You was an adult. Yeah.
You'd ask him, what do you think about Bill Clinton? He'd go,
yeah.
When he's like 1 or 2 years old.
And of course, he did it, he did it on his own the first time. When it was like, and then, of course, we encouraged him after.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keep that up.
Yeah, Bill Clinton wasn't too popular in our home at the time. All right.
I remember that election.
We are just about out of time here on the program. We thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Brent Creeley, our producer. Brent, can you come to the microphone and tell us what's we have a new program starting today, right?
We have a new program starting in about 4 minutes, Victory and Grace with Jim Scudder.
Okay. That's coming up.
Yes, sir.
It's a Bible teaching program.
Yes, sir.
And it's debuting today in about 4 minutes on American Family Radio. Steve, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Wesley and to Chris and to Abe and to Stephen McDowell, Abraham Hamilton III, Stephen McDowell, and to Brent Creeley, our producer. We will see you back here tomorrow. Hope you have a great day, everybody. Keep listening to American Family Radio.
Well, you can stand where Forrest Gump stood.